Good morning, ladies.
Good morning. And gentlemen.
And so what is the word today?
Yes.
Own it? Can we say own it?
Own it.
So I have the pleasure to be here today to question a lovely group of leaders, women leaders, fiercest leaders. Our first person is Marcy Bliss. She is the president and CEO of Wedgewood Pharmacy.
Yes.
Thank you, Marcy. The next we have Ginny, Marino, and she is the CEO of Girl Scouts of Central and Southern New Jersey. We have Kim Ann Mink, and she is the CEO of Innophos, right? Innophos. We had this conversation earlier, okay? So it's Innophos. And our last person is Sheila Cort, and she is the director and senior coach for Taft Communication. Hello, ladies, and thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
So, today, the purpose of this panel is to dig a little deeper into our fantastic women leaders of these companies. We would like to get out of these ladies their life experiences being leaders. And so we will have I will have some questions for them. I would like for each and every one of you to answer truthfully about your experience being a leader. So the first question I have, and this one can be open for any one of you, how do you balance work and life responsibilities being a leader of a company? So
I can start with that.
okay, Ms. Mink.
And I think one of our wonderful speakers this morning mentioned it, and I hate to say life is never really in balance, and I think we have to know that. You know, the pendulum for me has, over my 33 years of experience, swung to balance in business, and then at times I had to bring that pendulum back to personal life and family. And it has really been about making decisions, and the decisions that suit your life at that time. So I am a mom of a wonderful son, 25 years old, and if we had a lot of time, I'd tell you how gorgeous he was and how wonderful he is. But there were times where I missed the game. I missed the concerts. But I didn't miss the concert or the game. So it was really about making sure, blocking off those really special times and saying to my assistant, there's no way you're going to give those up. And then there were times where we just had to discuss it, where I couldn't make it. So that's how I've managed the balance. But in addition, who helped me manage that balance was my partner, my husband, of 28 years. And without him, I really wouldn't have become the CEO.
Thank you. Thank you.
I have a little bit of a different take, so I wanted to share than the speaker this morning as well. I have two children. I have a son who's 20 and a daughter who's 18. My son was diagnosed with autism when he was 2, so I have a child with a disability. Oftentimes, women, when they have a child that's diagnosed with a disability, quit their jobs. And they decide to stay home, and it's so overwhelming to get that diagnosis. But we needed money to support the therapy I wanted to do for him, and we needed money to support the special diets I wanted to put him on, and all the things I wanted to do for him, so I did not quit my job. But what I had to do is build support systems. My family wasn't nearby, but I hired people. I hired college students to help. When I traveled a lot, and I was divorced when he was 5 and my daughter was 3, so I had no family around. I was divorced mother of 2, so I made sure, instead of buying, as I got promoted in the organization, instead of buying a bigger car or buying a bigger house, I used my disposable income to get help, somebody to clean the house. I hired a woman to plan my meals, do my cooking, do my laundry. I got support as I could afford it as I moved up the organization. So that way, you know, yes, travel sometimes gets in the way of things, and I really prioritize being there for my kids, but you do occasionally miss something. But it wasn't like I decided to stay home and give up my career and what I did for a living. So, so you can make choices that include paying somebody to help you. So those are the choices. I live in a tiny house, I drive a Subaru, but I have somebody clean my house and do those other things for me. So those are also choices you can make. And my son is in college, community college now,
Fabulous.
and he's doing great. And so all of that effort that we put early on, and in fact, one of the main learnings to become a leader is that you can do anything. If I can get my son to where he is, business, no problem, we can get there.
Yeah. I think one of the worst things that has happened to us as leaders or just employees in organization is falling into the trap of believing there's such a thing as work-life balance. There isn't.
Right.
And once we release ourselves from that, great things happen. It's really about work-life coordination. It's the same way we do at work, right? Something goes wrong, we figure out a plan B, plan A. That's how life should be. That's how our personal life should be. And kudos to you for recognizing I need support. A lot of us don't like to admit we need support. And it's so true. And it's not just only asking for support, it's accepting support. People will come to you in your career, in your personal life, can I help you with that? Or you need some assistance with that? Oh, no, we got it, I got it. It's okay to say, you know what? No, I'd appreciate that help. Doesn't diminish you, doesn't make you look weak. Actually, it's a real great sign of a leader when you're open to saying, yeah, I could use your help.
And letting go of the guilt.
Right, right. And adding to that, not forgetting to take care of ourselves, right? So I learned pretty early on in life that if I wasn't strong and didn't have the energy, I wasn't balanced. I wasn't able to give my best at work and at home and in all the dimensions of my life. And that ability to pivot, right, and have some, some time in our day and in our lives to be able to pivot is really, really important. I'm in a role in an organization and industry where I don't have a routine schedule. So I may work evenings, I may have to be somewhere on a Sunday morning or a Saturday night because we support girls and volunteers and do a lot of work in the community. And so that, to me, I've never looked at it as balance, but integration. So coordination, integration, how do you make sure everything's covered and that you're able to be strong and focused and energized in that?
I would just add one other thing. We're all leaders, so this is the tone at the top. So we speak about our own lives, never forget about the employees that are below, that are in your organization, because never forget, always be cognizant that behind that role is the person that matters, and we never know what's going on in their lives. So it's important, that tone at the top.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies. So my next question. As female leaders, what has been the most significant barrier in your career as a female leader?
Oh, can I go first?
Oh, yes.
So prior to coming into nonprofit leadership, I was a leader in the financial services industry and retail banking in particular. And then also spent some time in the IT world. Back in the 80s and the 90s when there were very few women in those careers. And so I have many, many stories about direct gender bias, being sent home from a job in an IT firm because I was wearing a pantsuit. And it was all men in the business, and they said, well, we don't think women should wear pantsuits, so please go home at lunchtime and change. And I did, because I was young and I didn't know that I should have said, no, this is perfectly acceptable, right? So you learn all those lessons pretty early on. And I still think there is some bias and judgment around us as women leaders. For me in particular, women who lead in the nonprofit arena, because I run a $16 million business. It's no joke. And there is a perception sometimes for women in government or academia or healthcare that somehow we're not working as hard as women in the private sector, and yet we are. And so, and there are more of us actually in those sectors. And I think it's because women really like to know that their work is also making a difference. So when you get to a position of leadership and influence, you have the ability, like Kim said, to make sure your employees are taken care of, right? And so I think that women, we could own that space so much bigger in all sectors of the economy by really taking advantage of that.
Great. So can someone answer, When you are handling a barrier, how do you deal with that specifically? As being a female as opposed
start.
to.
I mean, and similar to Ginny, I am in, have been and continue to be in a male-dominated chemical industry, where at times I was the only female around the table, and that continues actually quite often. And again, it might make you think that you've got to be someone else or something else to actually be successful in that case. And I've learned from a very early stage, right when I decided I wanted to be a chemistry major, where I was the only female chemistry major in my graduating class, to the point when I became the CEO of a chemical company, public company in the US, and I was the only female in December 2015 to be a female CEO in a publicly traded chemical industry. That's absolutely crazy. That could be a whole nother day. That 2015, we're still thinking that that's an okay thing. But for me, it's always been about determination and resilience. You never give up. It doesn't matter. When I was in second grade, we had to do a project where we had to decide what we wanted to be when we grew up and make a figure out of a milk container. Mine was hideous looking, so you know now I'm not an artist, but it did have pearls and high heels. That's all I need to say. However, a little boy actually said to me, "Girls can't be scientists." It was a little girl with a test tube with smoke coming out. If I had succumbed to that, I would have never gotten where I wanted to be. So it's that determination and resilience combined with agility and knowing where you can go and being creative and being that advocate.
Great.
I have two windows to look at it. So early on in my career, when I recognize I'm a leader, there are people who are looking up to me, people who are inspired or not by what I do and what I say. And then there were those, I do corporate communications. So my background was in public relations and in speaking and presenting. Then it evolved to teaching others how to speak and present. And it involved that really pretty much in the C-suite. So I was dealing with executives and CEOs and senior managers and helping them to communicate and present well. Talk about a barrier. The biggest barrier was here. This is what we need to conquer first. Will they accept me? Will it be okay? Will they understand what I have to provide? So I had to tell myself, wait a minute, you didn't get here by accident. You got here by purpose, and stand in that purpose. Then on the other side, as I'm coaching others to stand in their own purpose, one of the things that I recognize, and some of the powerful words you were just talking about as well, is we have to understand we have a purpose here. And our purpose is not to self-promote. Our purpose, if we're a good leader, is to elevate. To elevate ourselves and all those around us. So once you recognize that, that starts shedding that barrier. When you're fearful of walking into that room, you might be the only woman in the room, and there are senior male executives in there, and you're thinking to yourself, gee, do I deserve to be here? As you put your hand on that doorknob, remember why you were invited, and rest in that. They didn't call you in to serve coffee. They served you in to sit around that table and be present. That, just that knowledge, breaks down some barriers and gives you that comfort to walk in and say, wait, I have something here to deliver.
Yeah, and when they do ask you to get the coffee, you say, I'd be so happy to get you coffee, and then, maybe next time when the cups get empty, it's your turn.
There you go.
Unfortunately, that happened 30 years ago, so.
So I just want to expand. I agree with you. It's not just about owning your success. I love the theme of this NJBIA workshop, but it's also owning other success, right? So the best way for you to be successful is to own the people around you being successful. And I want to go a little more, a little deeper and more specific on the what's in the way it's in your own mind. So again, I really didn't find that being a female was a barrier in any way in my progression in my career. I've been the president of the company for 6 years, the CEO for 3, and right now we're a private equity owned company and large. We have over 600 employees at the company. So, but what I have learned over 15 years of really studying myself and my own mind in leadership training, and I've had a leadership coach for a very long time to help me do this, is that your own thinking is what's in the way of accomplishing results. But all of us have accomplished great things in our lives, whether it's personal things or professional things. So we all have the ability to think in ways with specific thoughts and language that have us accomplish things. So when I come up against a barrier, or my team comes up against a barrier, Deborah's smiling, she's on my team and she knows that we do this, is we literally dig into, if there's something in the way, what are you thinking about that thing? What are you thinking about your people? What are you thinking about the market? What about the private equity firm? What are you thinking about your colleagues? And we kind of unpack the faulty thinking that's in the way of accomplishing the result. Because if you can unpack that and then read it back to yourself and say, how likely am I to accomplish this result and get over this barrier with this set of thinking and this set of files that I made up? And the answer is never. You're never going to get there. And then we go through an exercise really where we say, okay, pick something in your life that you've accomplished, some great thing. So for me, my son, what's happened with him, I might pick that, or someone might pick a great, they really wanted this new job that they were able to get. Okay, what was the thinking that you applied to that? And what was in your brain? And what was the raw language? And you will find you have the language to achieve whatever you want already in there. And that language always sounds the same. I've got to do this. There's no other choice. I am unstoppable. I am going to deliver this or else. I mean, that language, I'm sure you all have language that's in your head that drives you to actually deliver those results. And all you have to do really is transport that language over into the barrier and say, okay, I'm going to retire this thinking that isn't serving me well and isn't accomplishing my result, and I'm going to take my own thinking of accomplishment and drive through that barrier. So
Great.
that's the actual specific thing that we do at our company, and I'm obsessed with results.
Thank you. Thank you. So, there are some women in young generation that's coming up today, and they're thinking of becoming a leader, and so they just need to know, like, what are some of the characteristics that each one of you feel that a women leader, a female leader, should possess when she's growing and she's leading a team? What are some of the characteristics that you see?
I'll start on this one. I think just what I ended with there is an obsession with producing results. You actually, when you give a commitment to deliver something to your customers, to your organization, to your employees or your boss, having integrity in that and pulling out all the stops to deliver results. I started in marketing as a manager, and just the consistent and reliable delivery of results over the years got me attention and opportunities to take on more responsibility in the organization. So I think really understanding that, like, not delivering and then having reasons for that does not get you leveled up in the organization. Like, get rid of your reasons and your excuses and just figure out how to deliver. And that to me was really a driver in my career. And then just learning and being agile. I know you had mentioned that, and some of the speakers mentioned that, and authentic. When I became the president, my entire staff was male. And I did have a few months where I was like, how do I be? Like, I have all my staff's male. There's a power struggle going on. There's a lot of aggressive and some passive aggressive people on this team. So what do I do with that? And then just getting comfortable with yourself and leading from your own authenticity and your own heart and your passion for the organization, your passion for your people. And I think that's a kind of a second thing that I lean on. And then growing. Every year, I ask myself, what kind of leader do I have to be now to get the organization to the next level? The leader I was 5 years ago, I would not have my job today. And the leader 5 years from now, I can't be the same leader I am today and not grow myself and be that person in 5 years. You have to grow every year and grow your people every year to meet new demands of the changing marketplace, of the changing workforce environment. For us, going from founder-owned to PE-owned was a very huge shift. So you have to keep growing as a leader and learning and developing yourself.
What I would add to that is for me, the importance of accountability, I knew that right from the start. And it goes about, you've got to produce results. But that accountability on every single level. I'm accountable to my employees, all the stakeholders, the customers, the investors. I'm accountable for the failures of the company as well, not just my personal failures, right? But that is my personal failure if the company doesn't do well. I mean, the other thing that I think that has helped me, and I talk about this to my employees, is never accepting the status quo and always moving out of your comfort zone. Because if I hadn't moved out of my comfort zone, I wouldn't be here. And you need to do that with your employees. And the last thing is really working with as you go through your career and you've got different teams reporting into you, it's about regular and direct communication with your employees about a shared vision. And that's not only to create that fellowship, right, that shared vision, but it's also really to raise that business performance so you can have those results. And to me, those have just served me very, very well. And I could tell you, I can go back even early in my career where I can point to that.
Right, and I think when I was thinking about the title of this workshop, "The Knowledge is Power," right? For me, the thing that I have been focused on my entire professional career is knowledge of myself. And whether that's, taking an assessment or getting critical feedback from my team, really understanding who I am at that moment on my leadership journey and where I'm really good, where I'm strong, where I bring value, and quite honestly, sometimes where I don't. And then making sure that the team around me fills that void where I can't provide the value. Because I think too often as leaders, we look around ourselves and what the accountabilities of our role are and feel as though we have to fill every one of those buckets. When in reality, we need to fill the buckets we fill best and then leave the buckets to other people and give them the space and the resources to fly. Years ago, I learned through doing some self-discovery that my greatest leadership strength is also my greatest leadership flaw. And that is that I can look at a problem in my organization and find a solution pretty quickly. So what was I doing? I was finding lots of solutions all the time and telling everyone until my COO said to me, "Please stop. Please stop. I need you to stop because you're adding value in solving problems. While it is helpful, it is also creating a little bit of a unclear direction in the organization as to what our priorities are." So it's great, boss, find all those and give them to me, and then please be silent in meetings. And I had to change how I was. And that was knowledge about myself that gave power to my role that really helped the organization to thrive.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, part of your question was talking about those who are young and who are looking to lead in the future.
Yes.
I think my biggest advice in that regard is to recognize that leadership is not a destination. It truly is a journey. Leadership is not a title. It's not a corner office. We are given opportunities each and every day to lead. When you're given those opportunities, embrace them. Demonstrate your skill and your knowledge at that moment and lead in that moment. Because in that moment, you are the leader. The great leaders who have the big titles, who have the corner offices, who are running teams, are those who allow others to lead in their space. When you allow your team to lead in their space, you're creating your successor. And that is the mark of a great leader. You want people around you who are as smart as you or even smarter. That's the important part. So, when I'm coaching someone about that, what usually comes into play, and you said, what is it? It really kind of boils down to having a real good sense of emotional intelligence. I know there's a separate workshop on that, but it's such a powerful thing. You cannot be a leader of people without having an emotional connection. It is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of understanding. When there's a problem, usually there is a good reason for it. Let's uncover that together. That's really about being present and being emotional, intelligent about that situation, helping those around you to really lead and excel. Because as you do that, you build yourself, you build those around you, and the next thing you know, you've become an even better leader and you have your successor and other leaders, if they should leave your organization, who will go on and remember you. Will remember you as a good leader, as a good mentor, and will take that and pass it on.
Great, thank you, ladies. So my next question, being current leader, what are you doing to ensure to continue your growth and development as a woman leader, and what in the future for other women leaders? So what are you currently doing now to open the door for you to continue to grow and open the door for others that's coming?
Yeah, I can start with that. I think, I think one of my wonderful colleagues here said they still have a coach. I've had an executive coach who is now really a trusted advisor. I've had an executive, that same person, for over 15 years. And, and people say, you still have an executive coach, there's certain,
Like
was there something wrong? Something
Aren't you
wrong?
done?
And it's been amazing. And it's a safe haven for me to go to talk about the things that worry me, the things that I think I really need to learn more about, or situations that I don't quite know how to handle, because I think, again, it's that self-awareness. We don't know everything. And the other thing is, and I have some of my colleagues here today, I will go to folks on my team and say, you know what, can you give me feedback? And there's one person sitting here that's supposed to give me feedback on what I did wrong in the panel, so I'm sure they're writing that down. So, all right. He's the brave young man sitting there. And it's to actually ask those questions. I want them to challenge me, and I go, and I saw something that, an immature leader acts. A mature leader thinks, acts, and reflects. And every day I reflect. I reflect on how I did it, what I might have said. And then the third leg of my stool is I network with others that have gone on journeys like this, like the four of us. And sometimes you say, do you see that? Do you worry about that? I'm not quite sure how to do that. And for me, it's just amazing to do that.
Yeah, so I have the unique privilege of each and every day, what gets me out of bed is the 19,000 plus future leaders that I get to influence by my work each and every day. And those are all of our Girl Scouts. And so for me, it's really been an amazing opportunity to marry an avocation with a vocation that started before Girl Scouts. Previous to Girl Scouts, I was a CEO of a YWCA, which worked with women. And so I've really been so blessed to have this opportunity. Along the way, I do a lot of intentional work in guiding and mentoring my leaders. And I make sure that we can open doors for them, we can build connections for them. I recently had that experience that one of the keynotes mentioned, where one of our frontline employees came in. She was absolutely terrified. She was literally shaking, sitting in my office, and I thought, I have no idea what she's going to say. This is really worrying me. And she said, will you mentor me? She said, I don't really know what I want to do yet, but I see some things in you that I want to build in myself. And when you help me, and I was like, of course I will, here's some homework, right? And so I think that intentionality has paid itself back to me in more ways than I can imagine. I learn from many young emerging leaders, how to sharpen my own skills as someone who, I'm about the same age as Michelle. So when you think about kind of where I am and what I'm doing, and then the other piece of that is I never stop thinking about where I'm going. So I may not be obvious. I have a couple members of my team in the room as well. If they came into my office, they'd see all the Girl Scout goals on the wall. Right. But what they don't see is the wall in my home office, where it has a 5-year sort of career and life journey mapped out for me. Mm-hmm. And my coach helps me to stay accountable by that, because it doesn't just happen organically. It's not just going to happen. I love The Secret and that whole thing about putting your intention out there and it'll manifest. Well, that's part of it, but it doesn't happen if you don't put some effort behind it. And so I do that for myself and reflect a lot.
Yeah, it's always good to hear and I'm so wonderful that my colleagues here at the table are talking about a coach. Women and men need to give themselves permission to recognize, I need to be filled.
Yes.
Right? We are not completely full, and if you are, you're not. And you need to recognize it. There is always the opportunity. You always have capacity to grow, to stretch. And coaching is a wonderful thing. I have the opportunity to sit with leaders across the country and talk to them about what really matters to them. You would think that it really matters about the financials, it really matters about the branding, and that's all important. But what really matters is, am I doing the right things?
Yeah.
Right?
Purpose.
Am I doing the right things? Am I helping my team? Are my people enjoying what they're doing? Am I building for the future? Because I won't sit in this seat forever. Am I building for the future? Those are the things that keep leaders awake, right? They're thinking about what is the legacy of myself, my organization, and what am I giving to my people? We do that when we get an opportunity to go, okay, here's my day. Here's what happens. And someone hears us and listens first and foremost, and then speaks. Okay? You don't want someone who's going to say, well, what you should do is, right? That's not what a coach does, a good coach. A good coach listens to you. They want to hear what's going on in your heart, and then they're going to get you to recognize you've got it inside of you. You can do it. As leaders, we look to our team to let them know, not you're deficient here. Wait a minute, you've got this. As you said before, when there's a barrier, how can we come? Let's think about this, right? We have the capacity to do this. And when you feel those days when you're just really like, having that coach to reach out to remind you, you've got this. It's okay. And if you don't have it, hey, let's figure out how you can get it. It's a powerful thing. We run to the doctor to say, oh, my arm hurts or my throat hurts, right? Why can't we run to someone and say, hey, look, you know what? I'm a little stressed about what's going on at work, or I don't think my boss is getting it with me. How can you help me? Now, great, got it. We go into work now a little bit higher, a little bit better, and we're able to pour into somebody else. It's a real powerful thing to think of. We've got to give ourselves permission to open up and accept.
Yeah. I think when I'm hiring executives, it's a red flag when you're interviewing someone who thinks they're done growing and they think they're developed and that they have everything that they need to do the job. And that might be true today, but it's not true tomorrow. So it's a real red flag when I'm interviewing people and I have the opportunity to interview people, you know, more educated than I am, from big companies who have like very impressive resumes, but if they think they're done growing, they're done with the interview for me.
yeah.
I mean, it has to be people that are learning and agile. There's three things I lean on really to grow myself as a leader. One is getting out of my comfort zone. So I think sometimes it's something I take myself out of my comfort zone, and sometimes it's a boss or the owner of the company. So for example, going from founder-owned, working for 16 years for the same founders, I was definitely comfortable. I knew what they wanted. I knew the expectations. When they decided to sell the company and sold to private equity, initially I completely panicked because that was way out of my comfort zone. I had heard all these horror stories about private equity. It turns out it's been the best experience. I love our private equity firm. I've learned so much from them because it was a whole nother realm that I didn't know about. On the list of things to do was an acquisition. And I'm like, I mentally crossed that off. I don't know how to do that. We're not doing any acquisitions, right? It was out of my comfort zone, but guess what? Last year we did a $120 million acquisition of a company that's across the country. So, and we're 2 months away from finishing the integration, a very successful integration with that company. So getting yourself out of your comfort zone, whether someone else gets you out, being willing to step in. When they first said we're selling to PE, I called the investment banker and said, I'm out. I'm not working for PE. I really did. I was like, I'm out. Because fear just overtook me. But thankfully, he talked me off the cliff, and I got to that next step. So that's important. Number two, I do have a coach as well. I've had a coach I've worked with for over 20 years on the phone. She lives in California. But I also go to leadership development training and make sure my team gets leadership development training. So we go to a place in Philadelphia where there are other executives from different kinds of companies, so the networking is kind of built in, where you share the challenges you face and they're sharing the challenges they face, and we're all working together to become better leaders. So I would say that's the second thing. And the third element is learning from your team. Even if you or the CEO, you're going to be able to learn from the people around you, and not just your direct reports, but all throughout every level of the organization. I think the last speaker mentioned her executive assistant being a mentor. My executive assistant was the same way. She came in, she had been with the CEO of Roman Haas for 18 years. The first thing she said to me is, go get on a board. My executive assistant ordered me to go get on a board. So you can learn. I am so moved by the people that work in our company, sometimes to tears. I'll see someone get up, a junior person get up and present something, and it'll move me to tears because I'm learning, I'm being inspired by them. So just the people around you, just learning from them, growing and being inspired by everybody, I think is the third way to grow as a leader.
Thank you. So one of the issues as women that we face being leaders is that are we being too harsh, or we're being too emotional as a woman leader? So I always like people to see us as a female human beings. So question for you ladies. If I called you on Saturday morning at 10 a.m., what would you be doing?
I might be getting a pedicure.
Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
I might still be in bed drinking coffee, watching TV.
I'm usually in the kitchen actually making breakfast because I don't have to run somewhere, so that's always enjoyable.
Good.
Well, every other Saturday I'm getting a massage.
There you go.
And every
Great.
other Saturday, I'm ashamed, but you'd find me on email. Yeah.
Email.
Saturday mornings, my husband plays racquetball.
Great. Thank you.
Mary, you
ladies.
said you were going to throw some of these.
She did, she warned me.
I did. So another question for you ladies. What is the most important decision you make on a daily basis in your organization?
I can start with that. For me, it's really about the health and safety of our employees. And I tell people that, you're right, we talk about our results. I have to, report my results quarterly as a public company, and I'm bound by that with the SEC, and I talk to my investors who can be brutal. But the most important thing is that my employees go home safe every day.
Great.
I work in the chemical industry, and our first priority is environmental health and safety. So every day I think about that. Every day we're talking about it. We start every single meeting with a safety moment. It might be a moment that you experienced in your life, whether it was something, now that winter's coming, we might talk about slipping on the ice. For me, that is hands down, and I tell everyone it doesn't matter how much our revenue is, how high our EBITDA is. If we have a bad safety record, shame on us.
Great. Thank
Yeah.
you.
So for me, it's did I spend my time in the best interest of girls?
Okay.
Did how my day went support my team, support our key business goals, and is everything centered around making the world a better place and providing more opportunities for girls?
Okay. Great.
So for me at Taft Communications, we're a corporate communications firm, and I lead the leadership division of that firm, Taft, ClearPoint. I think the most important thing that I think about on a daily basis is to remind myself, and like I said, we need to coach ourselves sometimes, to remind myself it is really about the we. There are people who depend on what we're helping them with, what we're telling them, and we want to make sure that what we're telling them is sound and it's grounded in experience or in science. There's an understanding to it. So just reminding it, it's not about you, Sheila. It's really about the we. How am I bringing something to them? How am I helping someone today? And the reason why I have to remind myself of that is because there's a lot of I stuff that happens.
Yeah.
Before I leave the house, there's I stuff. I have 4 children. Most of them are growing out the house, thank God. But, still, as my mom used to say to me, big kids, big problems, right?
Yeah.
So, when your daughter, who's an executive traveling around the country, calls you, Mom, you stop. It's like, whoa, what's going on? It doesn't matter that she's 28 years old. But that being said, you want to minimize the I and really focus on the we. And we have to train ourselves that daily to do.
Great.
I just had a flood when you asked that question because I can't think of any one decision. We make decisions every day, and you have to keep all the stakeholders in mind. We use those chemicals to make drugs for patients, so we're keeping in mind every day the safety of the patients and the safety of the employees and the investors' interests. And, just like, there's so much, really. And it's just like doing the right thing in all of those areas. Like, how can I do the right thing? And it isn't always the thing that makes the most money, the right thing.
That's right.
And then, then when you go to the investors and explain why you're making a choice that didn't necessarily make the most money, it's very rewarding when they come back and say, you made the right choice. Because they want that too. You think they have opposite desires than what you have, but they don't. The investors want you to do the right thing too. So I just think that kind of summarizes it.
Great, thank you. So, as a leader of a company, I always feel that it's important that the leader understands the company's mission, vision, and core values. So what is important to each one of you in your organization, your mission, your vision, or your core values?
It's the core values for me, because that is the foundation of everything we build upon. Because you could have a great vision, and you can have where you want the company to be, but if you're unethical, there's a lack of integrity. If you don't have a commitment to the health and safety of your employees, and I can go on and on. Without that, it's meaningless.
Thank you.
I'm really inspired by our mission statement. I mentioned that we make drugs. We make drugs for animal patients primarily when FDA-approved drugs aren't available to treat the unique needs of those patients. So our mission is that we're passionate about improving the lives of animals and those who love them. And that really inspires me. It's about the people because we love animals so much. When we take care of animals, our pets are like our kids these days, and the millennials are getting even more so that way. So when we take care of people's animals, we're taking care of those people, we're improving their quality of life. And we hire people, so many people at our company are just so aligned with their love of animals. They come in, they have 3 dogs, 2 cats, and a horse, a lot of our employees. And there's pictures of animals everywhere, all over their desks. The pictures are, instead of their kids, they might have one with their kid, as long as the dog's in the picture, So it's really, that really inspires me.
Yeah. I think that living your core values will take care of everything else. If you're truly living your core values, the mission will take care of itself. At our organization, the 2 things that really stick out for me are really about integrity and diversity. Integrity, just being true to yourself, true to your organization, and true to the people you serve, right? It's about being honest, it's about being real. And when I say that, people are like, oh, honesty in business. Yeah, it's about honesty in business, right? Because guess what? I found my most wonderful, moving moments is when I said, you know what? I messed up here. Mm-hmm. It's okay to say that. We're human, we're going to mess up here. But to keep that to myself and to continue existing as if something didn't happen wrong, I'm going to cause more pain down the line. So it's important for us to be true to ourselves and true to those around us and say those things. And when I talk about diversity, I'm not just talking about diversity of color or gender, I'm talking about diversity of thinking, right? I can't thrive in an organization or I can't thrive in a group that's not being diverse in their thinking. You talked about it, thinking outside of the box. That might sound cliche, it's so true, right? We have this saying that we say to ourselves, we play well in the sandbox, we really excel outside of it. And that's really what you want to do. You want to play, get outside, go for it, right? So it's those moments where you can be diverse in your thinking, diverse in your action. If those are part of your values as an organization, as a person, excel in those things. The mission will take care of itself.
So I am part of an organization, I'm a leader in an organization that's been around for over 112 years, centered around the Girl Scout Promise, the Girl Scout Law, and the Girl Scout Mission, which have not changed for 112 years. Because they are good. They are evergreen. And I think that what fuels us and what has really kept Girl Scouting around for those 112 years is the vision and the foresight to be ahead of our time, to be thinking about not what what makes these girls have fun and be engaged right now, but what is going to prepare them and propel them for their future. And that foresight is really, sort of the third piece of it. So for me, I don't know that I could pick one because they're so intertwined and so integral to what we do each and every day in our work.
Thank you. Thank you. So each of you ladies, in current society, what female leader inspire you the most and why?
I'll start. So I've had inspirational female and male leaders throughout my life, and they change all the time. I recognize that. One that I would say was Michelle Obama, and I'll tell you why, and you probably have all heard it before. When they go low, right?
Yep.
You go high. I've said that to colleagues. I've said that to coaches. I've said that to my children. I've said it to my husband when he's had a bad day at work. And it's something that, if you think of it in so many iterations, it'll give you this safe spot where you're like, you know what? I don't have to go there.
Yep.
I'm going to realize what I need to do. I'm not going to deal with the nasty. I'm not going to deal with the bad. I'm just going to rise and do what I do well. Rise and do what you do well. Continue to rise and do what you do well. I was coaching someone, they said, I feel a little intimidated when I'm in a room around people who are older than me, more experienced than me. I'm like, but guess what? They invited you to the table for a reason. Rise and do what you do well. Don't worry about feeling intimidated or down. Someone puts you down, recognize that's their deficiency, not yours.
Sheila, you have a lot of people, we have a number of people from my company, they're smiling. We just had that discussion. We've just gone through a tough strategy session, and exactly what we said, because people were down, and I said, no, we're not going. We're not getting nasty. We're going to go there. I think about every single day, and that inspires me, what Michelle Obama said. The other one I would add is Madeleine Albright. And she said, I'm not going to get this right, so bear with me. There's a special place in hell for women who don't support other women. Guys, yeah, there you go. You have got to support each other. And I can tell you, I know I'm 1,000 years old, started 33 years ago, and there wasn't that support. It wasn't pretty. And I just saw Indra Nooyi speak at the Fortune Most Powerful Women Conference. And I was listening to her video last night, and she said, it's about sisterhood. And she was hysterical. She said, has anybody watched Sex and the City? And so everyone laughed, like, oh my God, this amazing woman watches Sex and the City. And she said, I didn't know what that was. I wasn't brought up in this country. She said, I actually thought it was like a porn thing. I mean, hysterical, right? She said, and then I saw the clips, and these women were gorgeous. They had beautiful shoes and the outfits and so forth. She said, then I binge watched since I retired. She just retired as CEO from PepsiCo. And she said, those women never passed judgment on one another. They were there to help. They talked about the good, the bad, and the ugly. They didn't sugarcoat things. And each and every day I think about that statement of Madeleine Albright. And we will not go any further if we do not support each other.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies. So we just have a couple of more minutes, so we want to open it up to questions and answers.
Oh my God.
But I do have a question
over
for each
already?
one of you. Yes, I know.
Darn.
For each one of you. So this
Uh-oh,
is
here we
this
go. Mary,
or
you told
that.
us this.
So they're simple, they're easy.
Okay.
So for Marcy, what animal do you prefer, a dog or a cat?
I'm a dog person.
Dog person. Okay. For Sheila, do you prefer phone call or text messaging?
Ooh, phone call.
Phone calls. Okay. Ginny, do you prefer a rich friend or loyal friend?
Oh, loyalty, for sure.
Loyalty. For Kim, do you prefer a tablet or a computer?
You want me to say my age, don't you?
Desktop.
Okay, I'm going to just say a computer.
I know. I can relate. I tried to do something in my room last night on a tablet, and I got so mad. I know, right? I got so mad.
It's an eye
That's why I have these, right?
It's an eye thing.
Thank you, ladies. So now we are open for questions and answers, and we have a microphone to help you.
Hi, thank you so much for your insightful presentation. I was just curious if you could share some suggestions or maybe your experience in dealing as a leader with the younger generation, particularly millennials, and specific suggestions on how you have motivated the millennial generation. This is something that we are very conscious of in our practice, and we want to have the meeting of the minds with the upcoming generation and would take any suggestions.
You want to go?
Well,
And then
I'll
lay it-
start.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
so I think the very first thing that we have to do, as those of us that are not millennials, is really quiet our brains in diagnosing the millennials. Because I think that that is something that I have talked to many millennial leaders in our organization, and we talk to girls, and they're not one size fits all, right? That being said, there are a couple of drivers of that generation. One is that the thing that we often overlook is that they are much more oriented towards team accomplishment and working in groups than working as individual providers. And so while we often hear that it's all about them, right? They're the trophy generation. They were all raised to think that everything was awesome that they did. What actually we're finding as they get more out into the world is that they know what they do well, and many of them actually don't appreciate that continuing practice, right? So I think that giving them those doors to be open and also giving them the opportunity to get that learning. We all of the emerging leaders in our organization, we send to a management development program, regardless of their level of accomplishment or experience. And we try to give them stretch assignments. And I think that those kind of things are really helpful, and to really meet them where they are, right? So, just because they're young doesn't mean they don't want to try. Sometimes they just need that critical feedback that says, yeah, so you think, you're going to leap from, bank teller to president of the bank in 3 years, and that's not the way one builds a career. They need the stories, they need the experience, and they need the coaching.
Yeah, I'll
I would-
shatter a
oh.
little.
Go ahead.
I'll shatter a little bit of thinking. The term millennial, Gen X, boomers, those are marketing terms, first and foremost. We have to understand the root of those words. Those were developed so people can market to you, right? So I can speak to your heart, kind of what I think really moves you to buy those jeans or to get that lipstick or to get that perfume or cologne. Those terms in the workforce, in the office, are detrimental to relationships. Because what happens is it becomes the them and the us. If you ask most millennials, and dare I say all, they don't want that title. They don't want to be called millennials because they know the negative connotation that comes with it. They want what they want now. They don't want to stay late and do work. All these things. And of course you're going to find that, but you're going to find that in all the other groups as well, right? People who just don't want to put in or do what they have to do. It's really about, and you said at the end, meeting them where they are. And that goes across the board. We need to stop and kind of listen to hear what is of interest to Joanne, what's of interest to Paul. Because if we think that they all want the same thing, we're going to miss the mark. They all have different situations and circumstances. Some of them want to move up the career ladder. Some of them really just want a little bit of experience to go off and start their own business, right? So understanding what motivates each one of us across all of the sectors is really important. Millennials as a group, there's some unique things there, and that's always really important to be sensitive to because they grew up in a generation of circumstances, right? They're growing up in what we're seeing right now. We grew up in different circumstances. We joke about being older and those types of things, but there was a different understanding, a different culture that needs to be recognized and acknowledged. Once that's done, then it's about one-on-one.
Yeah, and the other, just one thing, I don't want to forget it, is in my, one of the things that I learned is the folks that are in that basic age generation group, they also learned differently. And so therefore their work styles are different and we can't judge them or predetermine them. And the one example I will give you, and this, I learned this from a consultant at Accenture probably 15 years ago, the headphones and listening to music and working. I can't do that necessarily because that's not the way my brain was wired. I walk down the halls of my office every day and all of my younger, and I'm grossly generalizing, they're sitting there listening to music and they are awesome employees. It does not affect their work, but if I said to them, take out those earbuds or our culture said, you know, that's disrespectful or you can't do that, that actually sends them off. It's just like my 19-year-old son who just graduated from a paperless high school. Okay, so this is the way, so these kids are learning differently and we have to understand what the implications of that are in the workforce. It doesn't make it bad.
Exactly.
It's not good and bad. It is what it is. And we as business leaders have to adapt ourselves and our businesses to meet the young folks behind us. We do.
The only thing I would add to that, and whether you call them millennials or Gen X, is one thing that we're finding, and I'm looking right at my VP of marketing who just did an amazing job of launching our website. When we have had the younger generation come and interview with us, because innovation, STEM education, that is all very important for the success of my company. Every time we interview, whether it's a scientist getting out with his or her Ph.D., whether it's someone coming out with an accounting background, they want to understand what is the purpose
The why.
of that company and why. Can I feel passionate about it? It doesn't mean we're not passionate or growing up we weren't passionate, but they chose to be in this industry specifically saying, well, if I do this, then the ingredients that go into the food, health, and nutrition market can improve the health and wellness of others. And for me, that purpose and then the sustainability, the whole area of ESG, that sustainability and social responsibility is so important. And we've had to sort of rethink this. Not that it wasn't there, but really trying to lead with that. Eugenie, am I wrong?
And how to articulate it.
How to articulate that.
Yeah, that's true.
So go on our website. No.
So thank you, ladies. We are at the end of our time now, and we appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you.